Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 108 of the podcast. And today I'm chatting with a new quilting friend, Stephanie Socha, and we're going to be chatting about organizing and designing and decorating your sewing room. And this is something that's really exciting because I feel like I've been very good at organizing my sewing spaces, of putting things together and getting things in the right spot and all that good stuff. But I haven't been very good about decorating my sewing space and having it reflect my unique style or personality. So Stephanie is a professional interior designer, and this is what she does for a living. She also shares a podcast called Make and Decorate with Stephanie Socha. So definitely check out her podcast. It's very similar to mine. So if you like my podcast, I think you'll really like Make and Decorate too. I'd be looking forward to that interview and getting to know Stephanie. And if you want to jump straight to that, you can just fast forward. And I have a timestamp below the video that tells you exactly how far to go so you can get straight to the interview. Or you can hang out with me as I share a little introduction about what's going on around the house. So first thing, I am working on my Eye of Calm Goddess Quilts. And as you can see, I already got it on the machine and started doing some quilting. And the main reason for kind of the huge amount of work that I've gotten done on this quilt is because I reached this chapter of the Goddess Quilt book, and I really needed to get more quilting on this quilt done in order to be able to write about it. And I kind of, as I was writing through this chapter, I realized, and then kind of forced myself to go quilt. I started struggling with perfection a whole lot. And so that ended up being a major theme of that chapter. It's one of the last chapters in the book. And especially when I start free motion quilting a project, that tendency to rip, that tendency to nitpick, like, oh, there's a stitch that's ever so slightly too big. I must rip it out and do it again. And then I usually end up making the exact same mistake again, and feeling this compulsion to rip. And, I'm not saying let's leave every mistake in every quilt, but I do think that it's important to start really looking at that compulsion to rip stuff out and understanding what's behind it and just how toxic it can be. It's not a healthy thing. It's not a healthy thing to look at one big stitch. And I'm talking it was maybe a millimeter bigger than the other stitches. It was not that big. But to look at that one stitch and think that that one bad stitch is going to ruin the whole quilt, or that somebody's going to see that one stitch and be like, oh, you're a terrible quilter. It's just ridiculous. And I can see how this has been a problem in my goddess quilts for years. I mean, Duchess Reigns, I think I was making some mistakes in that quilt, and that's why I started thread painting over it. I was making some mistakes, and then I kind of got tired of ripping all the time. So then I just decided, okay, I'll just throw more thread at it. Well, that resulted in stitching over and over and over the same spots 1,000,001 times. And it made that quilt take so much longer. And yeah, it took years. It really did. It took years to finish. So this has been an interesting theme throughout the Goddess Quilt book. And I did blow my deadline this week. My deadline to finish the text of this Goddess Quilt book was May 31st. And I blew that deadline largely because of the bunnies, that I've got bunnies, and we've been working on getting the rabbit ritz set up. We got a shed for them, and that was delivered on Friday, and that just kind of completely, it was just a major distraction more than anything else. I just could not keep working on writing. And then too, I needed to stop writing and work on this quilt. And basically I needed to stop writing and finish this quilt. And I could, I felt like I was at a point where if I did not really get obsessive with perfection, and if I did not, pick the most time-consuming filler designs in the world, then I could realistically get this done and, have it in the book. So it's been a push and a good one, and I think it's definitely been worth it. Some deadlines are great. I love having deadlines because it helps me get stuff done. If I don't put a deadline on certain things, it's just never going to happen. A lot of times when I'm working with another company, I'm kind of like, I really need you to narrow the focus and give me a firm deadline, because otherwise, not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. There's just too much to prioritize on top of other things if I don't have a deadline, a date hard and fast to make something happen by. So I'm going to start working with a new deadline for the text, everything to be polished up and ready to go by June 15th, and then too, it's just been a busy couple of months. And yeah, I mean, adding the bunnies to the mix, yeah, anything like that can really just throw things off. And I mean, I'm just thinking about the other projects that I had been planning on taking on this time. A couple months ago, I was thinking about maybe doing a bathroom remodel this summer. Nah, not gonna do it. Really, priority, I've said this a lot, guys, priority has to be singular. There has to be only one. My number one thing is to get the Goddess Quilt book done. And I'm hoping that in the next 2 days, I'll get the bunnies in their new barn, AC units set up, sewage system set up. Yes, indeed. Dad and I have engineered a sewage system for our rabbits, and it's actually going to be flushable. I know, it's just nuts. Basically, I realized from building the rabbit hutch outside that poo and pee is a major, major issue with rabbits. And, based on that experience, it was very, very good. I was able to understand how things are going to go. And, Dad and I kind of worked on that. Josh and I worked on that a lot, thinking through different possibilities, and came up with a system. And I'm building, and I've already built the hangers, but I'm basically going to hang a 4-inch kind of sewage pipe and kind of, I'm hoping, be able to pipe all of that stuff outside to a 5-gallon bucket and then be able to dump the bucket every day. So my goal is to not, to have this barn basically stay nice and to not be too smelly, and the rabbits stay nice and clean. And I think at maximum we'll be able to fit 14 rabbits in this barn, which is the maximum I would ever think to ever want to own. So I'm excited. I'm really, really excited about getting them set up. And Dad's going to be running the electrical, which is why I'm shooting this early this morning, because he's going to piggyback the electrical off the Crafty Cottage. And this was one of those funny things. Whenever we were putting up the Crafty Cottage, even Dad was like, I'm going to run 40 amps out to the Crafty Cottage. I remember him saying this. I'm going to run 40 amps out there because I know you might set up another barn one day, and then we can just piggyback it off of the barn, off the Crafty Cottage. And he was totally right. He called it. So we've got definitely enough power going to it to run small AC unit and a couple lights and, a socket or two, an electrical socket or two. So yeah, that's going to be good. Get all that set up and get the bunnies out of the heat. And that will be just in time for Quilt Fantastic. And so Quilt Fantastic is the seminar I'm doing in Kingsport, Tennessee on June 22nd. And that's at the Meadowview Inn and Convention Center. And yeah, I just need to make sure that I have everything kind of situated and ready to go, because I'm going to be gone for 3 days. That's been a major part of all of this too, of just wanting to have the rabbits taken care of, so that way I don't have to worry about them when I'm out of town. And we're also doing Junior Olympics in July as well. So yeah, Quilt Fantastic is coming up, and I'm getting really excited about it. And that is coming up on June 22nd. And if you're interested and you want to buy tickets, contact Bob Bolton from the Sewing and Long Arm Center in Kingsport, Tennessee. And you can quickly link over to his site by going to leaday.com/events. And I am getting really excited about this. I am going to set up the long arm with some fabric and start experimenting, practicing kind of. I mean, it's a lot of content that I want to share in a 2-hour seminar. I'm going to do a long arm focus in the morning and then a home sewing machine focus in the afternoon. They're 2 different seminars, and because of limited space, we're only letting you sign up for one of them. Sorry guys, but it just makes the most sense to do it that way. So either sign up for a long arm session or a home sewing machine session. And yeah, I want to get some practice in and have a really good game plan of my time, because the last thing I want to do is just could talk way too fast and have too much to share and not enough time to share it all in. So yeah, I'm going to be practicing quite a bit, and then I'm also shooting videos ahead, so that way I have everything set up for June. And I already got my videos shot for this month for the Friendship Quilt Along, and this is our block. beautiful bear's claw, and I decided to do echo ditching and ruler quilting, but with my walking foot. Oh yes, you can do that. So that was a really fun adventure, and you can check that out. That video will be coming out next Monday. I still need to get that block on the long arm and do my second version of it on the long arm, and I'm thinking, I don't know, I haven't really decided how I want to quilt that one yet on the long arm. I think maybe some stippling, I don't know. It's kind of with each block, because I did not plan the quilting ahead of time. It's been really fun because I can just basically, kind of whatever I'm feeling like the day that I sit down and start quilting it. And that's been really nice because I feel like friendship more than any of my samplers has really reflected just kind of, how I'm feeling that particular day and how I want to quilt it very simply. And it's also been really pushing my edge of perfection, of not feeling like I have to quilt something to death in order for it to be good. And I really like that. As you can see, it's pretty minimal quilting on that bear's claw, and that means that the quilt is going to be nice and soft. I mean, I'm making a bed quilt here, not a wall hanging. I've made enough of those. I don't need any more. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm picking out, I've got some water-soluble thread, and I made a mistake with the water-soluble thread on this quilt. Because it's made out of silk, it's really hard to see the turned edge of the applique. I've never had this problem really, and when I did the water soluble, it just really kind of filled in that whole area right against the side with that fold, and I can't really see where I'm supposed to be stitching with my walking foot around her hair. So I've been picking out the water soluble, and yes, I know this is obsessive and kind of crazy, and Josh will probably watch this part of the video and see like, you've been doing what? Yeah, kind of nuts. But it hasn't been taking that much time. I just really want it to be perfect. It's that whole thing, guys. I've been talking about it a lot, but I really think this is going to be a major part of the Goddess Quilt book, of just battling that need for things to be just absolutely perfect, and then that's only going to be good if it's absolutely perfect. Yeah, I need to stop doing that. That's a little bit weird. So as you can see, I pulled out all of the pre-cuts for our weekly giveaway for the podcast. And basically, in order to be part of the giveaway, all you have to do is join our Quilt Friends Club. That's at quiltfriends.club. And this club is exclusive for quilters. It does cost money. It's $2.99 a month or $24.99 a year. That lets you enter the club and hang out, make lots of new quilting friends from around the world, participate in our How Do I Quilt This series, where I shoot a special video just for members every month, and you get a chance to win pre-cuts. So this week's pre-cut is this beautiful, not quite white Kona cotton pre-cut. I bought this years ago. I still really, really like it, but I have not used it. So it's time for it to go to another person. And the winner this week is Courtney Beckett. Congratulations, Courtney. And let's see here. Which one do I want to give away this month? I think it's going to be this one. This is a Moda 2.5 strip pack, and this was fabric I bought for myself for Christmas. So yeah, I really wanted it, but I never used it. I never cut it up. I never even unpackaged it. And this is, I think, what is it called? White Christmas JR is the name of it. And it's really cute. It's like gray and white, and there's like metallic gold and metallic silver on the strips. Yeah, I really, really wanted to make a cute Christmas quilt with it, but I missed my chance, and it's just sitting there and kind of driving me crazy. So I'm going to give this away, and you have time. If you get this pre-cut pack, you have time to make a beautiful Christmas quilt between now and Christmas this year. Yeah. Anyway, so that's going to be the giveaway for this week, and Josh will be shipping this out to Courtney probably today. So that's really exciting. Okay, and a special thank you to new members. We had 7 new members of the Quilt Friends Club: Sandy Schmelfling, Terry Bornholt, Patricia Terry, Patty Sindroff, Nancy Rohrbeck, Kay Shores, Kathy Osterkamp. Thank you guys so much for joining the Quilt Friends Club. I'm so excited to see everyone there. We have nearly 400 members, which is really exciting. And I love how small and awesomely supportive this club is. It really just feels like having a group of my best quilting friends all in one place, and that is terrific. So that is pretty much it for the updates around the house. Yeah, not a lot going on other than messing around with my bunnies and messing around with this quilt and working hard on my Goddess Quilt book. And I'm so excited about all of these things. And I have absolutely no regrets about the bunnies. I have no regrets about, even going on this like perfectionist tangent on this quilt. I think it's all a process of learning and of growing with this. And I'm so happy I got the bunnies. They're bringing so much joy to my life. Being able to go out there and pet them and hang out with them for a little bit. It's going to get even better whenever I have the barn set up and a little bit more room for them to play. And that's going to be awesome. So I hope that you enjoyed catching up with me this week and you're excited about what is to come. I am planning on starting to do more videos on my Goddess quilts. As I mentioned last week, this is one of the quilts that was just I started it and then I never finished it. Well, I finally got her body done with the 1/2-inch hexagons. I need to start her arm. And then my plan is to, share some videos on how I'm going to quilt it. I definitely feel like this one's going to need walking foot quilting because in some places there's like 6 layers of fabric already and I'm not even done with it yet. So that's going to be a whole ordeal. But some of these also I want to put on my long arm. And something I'm really working on is, instead of just grabbing, a random quilt or piecing something together really fast to do a video, I'm looking at pulling out these UFOs, these quilts that are unfinished, and pulling those out and making the videos on those. And again, this is the scary side of it, is that it might not be perfect and it might take more time and all of that other kind of, worry stuff kind of comes into it. But I think that's really what I should be doing to get this, to kind of work in the direction that I really want to be working and to be finishing these quilts so that they're not just stuck in a bin, stuck in a drawer forever. So that feels really good too. So that's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful quilting week. And now let's get to know Stephanie Socha and learn more about organizing and decorating our sewing spaces. Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and I am here today with Stephanie Socha. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Leah. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
You're very welcome. So a little introduction. Stephanie Socha is a maker, quilter, and podcaster with a background in interior design. Stephanie's podcast is Make and Decorate with Stephanie Socha Design. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about organizing our sewing spaces and decorating them so they reflect our unique style. So my very first question is, how is your sewing area decorated? Do you have anything really special that you've set up? And also any tips on organization, right to start with?
Well, sure. And my sewing area is unique in that we live, city living. We're just on the outskirts of Chicago. So it's a narrow 2-flat building. We have both flats. So the upstairs is where I work. It's my office, which you see behind me, and my studio, sewing studio's in there. But in there is a kitchen because it's a 2-flat. So someone could live here and that would be their kitchen dining space. So that's what I've turned into my sewing room. And I just did the space plan to where it would flow. And that kind of came organically because when I first started sewing, it was more just like home dec and apparel. Then I started quilting, and then I really needed to change the flow for quilting, because quilting has a specific flow to it of like when you're cutting and you're pressing and you're sewing, it's just that sort of thing, and a lot of the cutting. So it's unconventional and it's a small space, but I think people just need to not worry about the rules so much and make it work for them. And that's what I did with me. So I broke some rules, but you have to know the rules to break them, I guess. But I have like a dining table that I've converted into my cutting table. It's 42 inches wide by 72 long. And I turned it perpendicular to the kitchen cabinets. So there's there's like a lower cabinet that I would have to crawl under the table to open it. It blocks it, but I'm okay with that because it allows me to get on both sides of the table, and it just the flow is much better than if I would have turned the table horizontally. So decorating wise, it's just ongoing for me, but I do fill it with as much of my sewing tools and fabrics and threads as I possibly can. And this gets into your topic of organizing. And one of your questions is, are decorating and organizing are two different things, or are they related? They are very two different things. So decorators and designers really most of the time have no clue about organizing, because decorating is all about aesthetics and space planning. So we need to like make sure that there's flow and that circulation can get through a space and you can reach all your furniture and everything, but organizing it, we don't care. Well, we do, but however, I've worked with an organizer with one of my clients, and I've learned a ton. So I've taken from her, and also I like this. She's a YouTuber, and I can't remember her name, but her channel is Clutterbug. A lot of people know about her because she's got tons of followers. She's up in Canada, and I did her little test. She's got 4 different types of organizing personalities, and I happen to be a butterfly / bee. I'm kind of like a cross between those two. So for people on decorating and organizing, it all depends on their personality, because the way I do it would completely turn somebody else off, because I like to see my things. They need to be out on display and they need to be pretty.
Yeah, like just for an example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just for an example, behind you is a beautiful bookcase, and you've got fabrics and you've got pre-cuts. I'm describing it just in case someone is listening to the podcast versus seeing the beautiful video that we have, so they can see you. And behind you, you've got this awesome bookcase and fabrics organized, and you can see you've got jelly rolls and fat quarters and all kinds of stuff. So I like that. I like that too. I like to be able to see certain decorative things, but I also like to switch it out every once in a while. You know, like I'll I have a fat quarter pack that I'll never unwrap probably. I bring it out every spring and I put it on the shelf every spring. And then, you know, I just like it all stacked up. So so you like it to be exposed, but other people like to put things away.
Yeah. There's other types that it just bothers them mentally, like they just can't like function. They want things put away, and they want it minimal and behind doors, in drawers, and they don't want to see it. So that's a different organizing and design type. So I mean, usually those type of people like very minimal design, and they don't like a lot of knickknacks and, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, and I've seen different sewers and quilters rooms, and some of them I've seen where it's kind of minimal, but for the most part, we are expressive and like to put things out. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah. And when it comes to, you know, that was my next question, was about organizing and decorating, you know, that they're professionally, if we're talking about interior design. So if someone contacted a designer and said, I want you to design me the perfect sewing room, and they were also expecting organization to be part of that package, then that would be something that they needed to contact a home organizer about. Is that right? I'm curious.
Yeah, it depends, because I mean, they really would have to talk to that decorator and designer, and that they would say right off the bat, oh, I love to organize things. I mean, that's how I do it in my house. Or they would say, well, I'm going to bring someone in that'll help us, because you have a very specific niche. And if they're not, like, I could do it because this is what I do. I sew and quilt, so I could help a sewer, a quilter, but this other designer, like that I freelance for, would have no clue. She doesn't sew, and she is one of those types that likes to have everything like tossed into a closet, and just so she could see like clean countertops.
Yeah.
So And she's the one that where I hired an organizer for. So she comes in sporadically and helps. And she's the other thing too is this client does not like to spend a ton of time organizing. So this
Ah.
organizer is quick. Like organizers that do it day in and day out, they know the drill. They
Hmm.
bring stuff that could work as organizing bins and containers and stuff. And once they get to know the client type, then they know what type of storage to bring. So yeah, that's that's kind of like how I guess you would do it. Like for even if in renovations, um, I really, we would have like closet designers come in and do the closet design. So
Wow. Okay. Neat.
yeah.
I mean, this is a whole side of the professional decorating, organizing side of things that I've never known anything about. So I find this fascinating. Just you personally, what is just speaking from your experience and as a quilter too, what's the best way to store our large variety of quilting tools and fabric and gear? I mean, we've got so many different things. Thread is
Mm,
challenging to store.
yeah.
I used to put it outside on racks, and then I started putting it in drawers. How do you store that stuff yourself?
Well, I store what I use the most out, and I have a rack on, well, a wall. You could consider it a wall, but it's actually on the side of the refrigerator, which is like a wall. It's a perfect place for it. And yeah, I just put like this, like it blends right into the refrigerator, like industrial Velcro strips, and
Nice.
strip that wood rack right onto there. And then it made that much prettier to look at than the side of a refrigerator. And then on my sewing table, I have a smaller rack that, it's like a frame. It has like the little stand, that kickstand that comes out, and it's right on the edge. And I can just reach for my pretty thread right there. And it's colorful too, and it makes me happy to look at it. Tools, I've got my rulers out. So you got to like use spaces that you wouldn't think that you would use for storage. And since it's a small space in here, I use the window ledge above the sink in this room kitchen here, and I put the little wooden ruler that holds the rulers up on the sides
Mm-hmm.
right there. And it's
Oh
so
yeah.
easy for me. And it's right next to, in reaching distance to my cutting table. So that's the other thing too is, and designers are very good at this, at putting things in reach of where you're going to be using it. So that's part of the function, part of design. So we really have to find out how, and you have to do this too for yourself if you're doing this on your own. Figure out how you're going to use the space, and then um, put your tools in a reasonable distance of where you're going to use them. Because if my rulers are all the way on the other side of the room, I'm not going to want to walk over there to go get them. Even if I have a perfect shelf for them over there, it's not going to happen. So I would put something else over there that I don't have to reach for all the time.
Yeah.
So think about how you're going to use it. And I keep my cutting tools and anything that I'm going to use at the cutting table over by that cutting table on that counter. And then over by my sewing machine, I keep all my sewing machine accessories, threads, and those type of things that I need to use right at the machine. So it's like really, I'm really happy with how I have my room set up now as far as like function and organization.
Yeah, and then how do you store fabric yardage? This is a challenging thing because yardage, I'm talking like 2 yards cut
Mhm.
together all in one length, or like backing fabric, which can be 90 by 90, like a
Yeah.
huge, huge piece. How do you store that specifically?
So I have a closet, and it's not that big. It's just a standard small closet. Because, I mean, this is an old house. So it's like 100 years old. So it's got those tiny, you know, 3 by 6 closets. But I utilize the vertical space in there, floor to ceiling, with some shelves. And then in the back of the closet, I have a big box that I kept from one of my, you know, upholstery supply orders. And I keep all my tall fabric rolls that are like my home deck fabrics and in the rolls vertical. So like even like what you see here, this vertical storage behind me
Mm-hmm.
of the, floor plans. So I do that for like the big fabrics, and then yardages for like quilt backings and apparel and stuff like that. The only thing that I've come up with that my space will allow is clear, big sterilite storage bins where I can see in there and I label them clearly. And I have like the box that's backings. I have a box that's like, knit apparel. I've got a box for, quilting. I even have winter boxes, summer, you know what I mean? So you got to kind of
Yeah.
organize it to how you're going to use it.
Sure.
And there's a spot, so I don't start the shelves in that closet until about like 4 feet up. So those kind of get a little, some of them get stacked in there, some of them get stacked on it's always like rotating like you do.
Mm-hmm.
So basically how I'm going to use it. So for instance, when the holidays are over, then that box goes on the floor in the closet. And then I bring out whatever
I
next
love that
season's
idea.
coming up.
Yeah, I
So
love that
that's how
idea.
big yardage is stored for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's terrific. I'm struggling with this with bolts of fabric. And so what I realized was how I built my original shelving system, and I would hang yardage on hangers so then I could browse through it like I was browsing through a t-shirt,
Uh-huh.
hanging my clothing in the closet. That's kind of how I went with it originally. But you have to be willing to change your space and change your
Mhm.
setup as
Yeah.
your needs change. And my need changed because I started buying fabric in bolts instead. Those bolts did not fit on the shelf. So the
Right.
shelves, especially my taller bolts were hitting the ceiling where it was set up. So what I'm going to do to modify that is just take out the top shelf that's blocking it, and then
Yeah.
everything can go on one shelf and it will all fit perfectly.
Yeah,
And I
and
think
those fit better if they can put them vertical, and then you can fit more in there, and you can also see what it is.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I
Hmm.
think that's the most important thing that I've learned over the years is number one, first kind of get into your space and feel it. And
Hmm.
and see how things are feeling, and like what you said, where are you going to be cutting, where are you going to be basting, have those tools close by. And it takes a little while to figure out where all those things are going to happen. It's
It
not
does.
instantaneous where it's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
going to happen right here. It's kind of like the first time you go into
Yeah.
a kitchen and you move into a new house and it's like, oh, that's where we're going to put the silverware. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I
Right.
love that.
Right.
So how do you store smaller yardage like fat quarters and pre-cuts and things like that? Where do you do with those?
I've tried a few different ways, and I really like, as you see behind me, the comic boards with the fabric wrapped around it. So
Nice.
that's what those are. There is at the very back, there is like 4 yards of fabric right there. But
It's a much
that's because
wider
it's a
wider
that's
piece.
because it's a project that I need to do. So I
Ah,
need it out here. So that's the other thing too, is just like I'm one of those visual people, and if it's out of sight, then it's out of my mind. So when I have to get something done or it's coming up, I'm not getting into it right now, but it's coming up soon. I put it out so I can see it. So it reminds me. Don't forget about
yeah, I
that.
have an entire UFO bin, and those UFOs are not getting done because they're in a drawer, and I don't see them, and they're not yelling at
Right.
me when they're in the drawer. So I need to pull that
Yeah,
out
you
and
gotta bring them out.
yeah, put them on the
And
wall.
they have to stare at you and they're like, I'm right over here. Hello.
Don't
And
forget about
then,
me.
yeah. And then I've got some fat quarters. So I actually store like up to a yard cuts on these boards. So at half a yard to a yard. And fat quarters, I've got like I've recycled these old like CD containers. So
Oh,
behind that's a box here behind
oh,
that used to hold CDs, but it's wooden, so it looks nice.
yeah,
And I just stack up my fat quarters in there. I've got fat quarters everywhere, so I use them to display.
yeah.
And so some of them are there. And then if you see, this is another like little decorating tip too, if you want to make it look pretty. So, because sometimes you can, be in your sewing room and just it almost looks like kind of like a, I don't know, warehouse type thing where
Yeah.
stuff is just stacked. So I've got like this big hardcover book that, about quilts laying on its side. It's like a coffee table book laying on its side. And then I've got the CD box on top of it in the back. And then I've got my fat quarters in there. And then I've got like the little succulent hedgehog. So, you just make it pretty according to your personality and
Mm-hmm.
make it. And then when you look at it, you're like, oh, it makes me so happy. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Using fabric as a decoration, I mean,
Yeah.
especially for a quilter, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But is that a challenge to keep it dusted? And yeah, my dad's criticism whenever he started working for me was like, everything is covered in 4 inches of dust. And I never dusted basically ever. And so then I started putting, kind of tearing things out and not having so much out. And that significantly improved the dust situation because he had trouble breathing in my house.
Oh. I don't know. I don't really have an issue with that just because I think, I'm constantly getting in here and pulling stuff in and out. And I don't really dust a ton myself. So I'm not the best. I'm not the best housekeeper. Let's just start right there.
But if you're constantly moving it, then that means dust isn't settling on it, right?
Right. Yeah. And then below this is where I have pre-cuts, and I don't have a ton of pre-cuts. So all my pre-cuts are pretty much, I have some here, and I've got another built-in out there that I've also got card, they're like, my brother made me, it's really pretty. We're on the computer, so I can't really take you over there. But I will say that last year on the IG Quilt Fest, I did take pictures of everything that we're talking about in the studio. So I have a link. I don't know if you want me to send it to you, but I'll send you that IG post link, and people can even just go to my Instagram. But it's from March of last year, and it's got pictures of all my studio when it was cleaned up. When they were saying, show us your sewing space. So,
yeah, absolutely.
There it is. Yeah. It's not perfect, but, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anybody that has, the perfect space that says, I would not like to change anything about it.
Yeah. But sometimes people think, oh, you're a designer, then your house needs to look like a showroom. They expect it to look so high end. And, that's hard to do because high end is out of my league. Like it's I can do that for my clients, and I know exactly how to do it, and I would love to do it in my house. I mean, I had a wallpaper sample up behind there where I wanted to put, because the bookshelves, the cubbies are open, so you see the wall space, and I wanted this beautiful wall covering. But I mean, at $200 a roll.
Whoa.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty steep. That is pretty steep. So one more question about fabrics. How do you store scraps? Scraps are really challenging to store.
Oh, yeah. I know. I kind of have gone through some different, things morphed into this or that. But kind of what works for me now is underneath my cutting table, I've got a large round basket. It's really pretty. It's the same as you can see from these baskets.
It's like a wicker basket.
It's a pretty rattan basket woven, and that's what that is. And then under there is where when you have little batting scraps and just scraps of fabric that could be used for dog bed stuffing and stuff like that. And then and it's big, so it takes a while, to fill it up, and then you just And then I've got another basket that's kind of like that size where I just toss stuff as I'm in projects, and that's where they go if I want to save it for some reason. But then I've got again, in the closet, I've got a labeled clear, little Sterilite box of whatever the size is. So for instance, I have a box just for foundation paper piecing, because when I started to do that, I realized that smaller pieces of fabric are perfect for that. So then I start tossing stuff in there. Then I started to get a little crazy, and
you started saving crumbs, didn't you?
Well, no, I did, but then I started to cut. I started to actually cut little 2.5-inch squares, and then it's I had time for it maybe once or twice, and then no longer. So yeah, that got a little crazy. But so then I just from that other basket that I tossed stuff in there. At a later time, I'll go through it and I'm like, do I really need to keep this or not? So, and is it big enough? But usually if I've got at least 9 inches or more, then that's going to go in a box in the closet.
9 inches or more, that's your limit. 9 inches square or 9 inches long, or, if it's 9 inches by 1 inch, are you going to save it?
No, maybe not. Well, actually, I do have a large mason jar on the top of the shelf where I toss in pretty selvages or leftovers of binding. I'll roll it up and I'll put it in that big mason jar. So, I mean, I do try to keep what I can that I know I will use, but I've kind of got to the point where, because before, it was on, everybody's like on the kick of like, you gotta like save everything and reuse it for this or that. I tried, but it just is not possible. So you do have to set boundaries of like, what are you realistically going to use? And then what's going to become clutter? And I am predisposed to clutter. So,
Yeah, you got to
yeah,
be
I just
real
kind of have
about
to
it.
set those boundaries. However, Liberty fabric, any piece of Liberty is saved, no matter how small. I just have to save it.
That is your bottom line. That's where you draw the line. I have to save it. Every single
Yeah,
little scrap, every crumb.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And how do you store and organize your unfinished projects? So we were already talking about how,
Uh,
it's a challenge when they're all stashed away. So how do you do that?
I have these.
Ooh. So it's a clear plastic vinyl bag, and that hangs on the wall?
It's a thick gauge vinyl,
Uh huh.
and this is from Uline, and I got this, and it's got like a 1 inch gusset, but you can see it stretches to bigger.
Nice.
But I got this from a client who got this for her office and then decided they were too big. She didn't like them, was going to get rid of them. And I'm like, hold the phone.
Yeah, I'll
No,
take
I
them.
have
I'll
a
take
use for those. Because I went online and I looked, and these are $75 for a box of 25.
Wow.
But now that I've been using these for over a year, I would make that investment because these really organize my project. So, like, this is a baby quilt I have to make for my sister, and I've
Mm-hmm.
got all, of the fabrics in here.
So everything is
All of
stored
the
in
little
one
fat
thing.
quarters that it takes, the pattern, and it just, for me, works. And then these sit inside of a box on the counter next to the cutting table.
Okay.
So they're lined up, nice and neat, like little soldiers in the box. And then, like, here's another one. This is a bag, tutor bag from So Sweetness, and I've got the roll of vinyl in here and the
Wow.
fabric. So everything that you need. And what's nice about that too is that, like, we all like to, like, plan projects while we're in the midst of other projects.
Yeah.
So if you just want to take a break from what you're working on and you want to pull like people, like I like to, because that's what interior design does. You pull fabric, so that's one of my favorite things. Then pull what you need for a project that you're going to do, and set it out where you can be reminded about it, and then
Yeah.
you'll be more likely to make it.
And it's when
I think
everything is pulled
that's just
together,
my
and then you could even like
opinion.
you could cut up a little bit of it. Okay, cool. So that's basically a way of organizing everything, and you could cut a little bit of it. You could pull out a bin and cut some on a project, and then be able to put it back. And I really like that. I think the problem I'm having lately is I've put too much away, so I can't even see my UFOs. So I don't know what I need to do next. So I really like that. That's a good
Right.
idea. So
Yeah, I think definitely you got to get your like I call it on deck projects lined up where you can see them.
absolutely. So now let's talk about decorating, because this is your specialty. How can we start decorating our sewing rooms, or just start thinking of that in a different way?
Well, I would say that don't do what you think you're supposed to do, and meaning that your walls do not have to be all white. They don't have to be gray. If you like pink, then paint your walls pink. Because I think that your room should reflect your personality and tell your story, because that's where you're going to feel the most comfortable. So that's first and foremost. And you can definitely start with paint if you wanted to add some color to your room. Decorating too is, like I said, pull out what you've got and display it, and make it decorative. Like I have a clear flower vase that I have my serger, like the little there. It's like a what's it called? It's like that fluffy yarn thread. So all those threads are in like a nice decorative glass vase. I mean, do stuff like that. Pull out like a decorative bowl. I have a decorative bowl where I've got like my little tiny, there's like little, whatever those 2.5 inch square packs are, pre-cuts.
Yeah.
I've got those, and I've got like little threads that I've collected from workshops and events that I've gone to, like the little Aurifil threads and stuff like that. So a bowl with all that displayed inside of it, so that it doesn't just get thrown into a junk drawer and then you never see it or use it. So I find myself going to that bowl and see, what I've got in there. And especially if I'm looking for a specific thread color, I'll see what's in there.
Absolutely.
What else? I don't know. Like I hang stuff on the walls. I've got like, just whatever, pictures, things that you like. A lot of people decorate their quilt rooms and it's really cute with a lot of little mini quilts. So whatever it is that you like, put it in there. And then the other thing too is if you don't want it to look so hodgepodge, then choose like an accent color that you're going to use throughout the space. And that kind of makes it look more put together and, like a little bit more of a wow. So for my room, my decorative accent color is more like a seafoam aqua color. And so I've got a Keurig because it's a kitchen. So I've got a sink right there. And that's in like the Target sells like this mint colored Keurig. So I've got that and it makes me happy to look at it. And then Michael's every, winter, like right after the New Year, they put all the storage on sale. And look, it's the same color.
Same color. Perfect.
And all of these little organizers, same color.
I have those too.
multiples of these.
Yeah.
And then they can be out and look nice and you can put stuff in there and it's just like pretty storage. And then this one, I like these too because they're really functional, but they look pretty. So this has all of my Juki machine essentials, including the bobbins. I've got the manual in there. I've got all the feet accessories, the screwdriver, the bobbins, and that's very, very close by my Juki machine.
Perfect. And I love how, like, just like that one tip of color coordinating to tie it all together. I think that's a great tip.
Yeah, and it just makes it look nice and decorated. And the last thing I'll say about that is I do see lots of rooms with nothing on the windows. And people think that if they put draperies up, that it's going to cut, block out all their light and they're not going to be able to see out their window to their beautiful view. But that's not true. So if you see right here, now I can pick up the phone and show you.
Yeah, but, beautiful window covering.
And they don't have to be expensive. These are from IKEA from like 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's a very simple floral print. It's kind of a see-through.
They're like a linen panels, unlined, very airy. But they just changed the look and feel of the space. They instantly warm it up. It just makes it warm, and to see fabric, it softens the room too. It really softens it nicely. And then my one Roman shade though is a little. One of the strings broke, so I have to fix that on that side. But I made those. I made those Roman shades, and they're sheer fabrics, and those those are actually drapery panels, also from IKEA, that I used just the fabric for to make these. I wanted these sheer Roman shades in my office here. So
nice.
Another way to keep it light and airy, but you can put the shades down, like to diffuse the sun or the light or whatever. So yeah, I really am a big proponent of window treatments if you can do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then any tips for adding our unique style to the room? There's like I love the color red. So how would you advise me to start putting more red in my rooms, in my spaces, without having to repaint? Because Josh hates it when I paint stuff.
Yeah, and I haven't repainted mine either because that probably wouldn't be the paint color that I would put in my sewing studio now. But it's still a nice neutral, and it's like a taupe color. Let me see if you can see straight ahead.
No, the other way around. Ah, there we go. Okay, awesome.
So it's called my room is a huge mess, so it's not. It needs to be tidied up. But it's called Alexandria Beige from Benjamin Moore, and it's just like a really nice, warm up way of doing like a gray taupe neutral. And what's nice about it is that colors do pop off of it. So if you do something a little bit deeper than like a white or a light gray, things will pop off of it. And then what you can do is I don't know if you can see. Let me walk over here now that I'm on the phone. You can put pops of red fabric in like these hoops.
Oh
And
yeah,
put
like
them on the
embroidery
wall.
hoops. Oh yeah, like hoop quilts. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great
So
suggestion.
yeah. So that's how you can spread some of your red around. And then like also I love purple. So that's kind of like a tertiary color for me. And so I do it with my iron,
Perfect.
my
Yeah.
rotary cutter.
So really
So
looking at color and color coordinating with the tools that you're using. I love that. And so
right.
just to
And
describe that real
then
quick,
this is the built-in my brother made for
oh,
me.
nice. It is a beautiful cubbyhole system with wood and glass. It looks like glass shelves.
Yeah,
And I
the
see your
top
crumbs.
ones are glass and the bottom are wood.
Nice. Very, very nice.
So I've got my little featherweight in here, and I've got like this, Kona thing draped over it right now. But that I'll probably like get tired of seeing that, and I'll take that off. But here's another thing: like I've just picked up these little antique, like this is a little sock mender.
Uh huh.
So and it fits with this whole old Singer machine, featherweight machine. This one too. Stuff like
Nice.
that you can like accessorize with.
Yeah, that's perfect. I really love the look of
Yeah,
that, and it
and
doesn't seem
yeah,
cluttered to me. You know, that seems like
no.
it's very well thought out.
And then like if you like red, wait, am I doing this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fine. It's looking
So
good.
like red. Wait, where am I at? Oh, red books. So if you like red, put like red book covers. And
Coming out.
think of things that you could put in there that has that red color that you like.
That makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're nearly at the end here, and I just got a few more questions. One idea would be, just how do we dress up and decorate something utilitarian like a sewing machine table? How do you make that just a little bit more,
Yeah.
just a little bit prettier?
Yeah. Well, structure wise, if it's a wooden table, the easiest thing to do is to paint it a really pretty color. Um, and even I was talking to on my podcast to this woman who does a lot of decorative painting, and it doesn't have to you don't have to be an artist. So if you kind of take out, she's like, you just have to have the nerve to do it, but not just painting it a color, but then do something like if you like floral, then do like a little floral painting like on top of it to make it decorative. And she even like uses her finger and dips it and like does like little petals with her finger. I mean, it's just
Wow.
fun. It's so much fun. So you could do that. And also lighting. You could put like, pretty lighting on your sewing table. And then I use also like, I have a decorative box. And again, this is like from Michael's. So it's, how they have all those like, they're like cardboard boxes, but they're printed in decorative things like Paris themes.
Yeah.
So I've got like an Eiffel Tower, and let me grab it real quick. So this sits next to my Juki.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really cute black box with the Eiffel Tower and some, bonjour,
And then
hello.
there's just stuff that I reach for. So like this little seam roller and, like all needles, all that stuff that could clutter up your table, put it in a pretty box.
Yeah, and that's so much nicer, and it if it fits your personality and you like
It
it,
does, yeah.
yeah, that's perfect. So, any
Yeah,
other tips for adding personality to our
yeah.
spaces?
And if you're a little bit more modern, then the Container Store has same types of storage like this, but maybe in more like solid colors, bright colors. So Target is a good place to find stuff like that. And yeah, so just like make it fun,
Yeah,
make it you.
exactly. So, tell everybody where they can find you online and learn more about your podcast and everything that you share.
Sure. So they can find me. My website is my name, StephanieSochaDesign.com. And the podcast page is there. And they can get the podcast on the podcast page and all the show notes right there in the same spot. And then I'm on Instagram, Stephanie.socha.design. So those are my two main ones. I mean, I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, but those aren't like my main, things.
Yeah, and you do a podcast very similar to mine where you share an update at the beginning and you share special guests as well. And so I really want to say, guys, if you like the Hello My Quilting Friends podcast, then I really think you're going to like Stephanie's podcast, Make and Decorate. So I hope that you'll go and check it out and make a new quilting friend too.
Yay! Thanks so much, Leah. I had so much fun chatting with you. I mean, decorating is something I definitely can just like chat like that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again and have a great quilting week.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye.